Welcome back. This is my follow-up video to the 2003 edition of Rolling Stone's 100 Greatest Guitarists of All Time. I did a video breaking this down in two parts, and I have the new edition, Fall 2020, of the 100 Greatest Guitar Players, Rolling Stone commemorative edition with Eddie Van Halen on the cover. Now you may recall my reason for doing this one when I did it was I happened to remember this issue with regard to Eddie Van Halen, because obviously he just passed, and I remembered how low he was ranked in this edition, and that prompted me to do a video on it. So not knowing that Rolling Stone was going to come out with a new edition, I thought, well, let's do a follow-up on this one and see how they did. So the difference between these two, this was compiled by editors from the Rolling Stone magazine. Compiled by David Frick and the editors, it says here. And there's some very big differences between how editors rank guitarists and how guitarists rank guitarists. So this edition is actually ranked by guitar players. There are a couple of Rolling Stone editors involved in here, David Frick being one, because we can't let the guitarists do everything, can we? We can't trust them, can we? Anyway, so this issue, before I get into it, is actually not a new list. This list was compiled in a 2011 issue. This is the same exact list. So it's kind of interesting to see that Rolling Stone had updates the 2003 as early as 2011. And to me, it's rather obvious when you compare the two, because the one here, which is the same list here for these two magazines, the one done by the guitar players is far more sober. It's a much, in my opinion, a much better list, a more sensible ranking than the one done by the editors. I don't know if they got a lot of feedback, but it took them about 8 years to do the new list. And what's interesting too, do you think there'll ever be another list compiled like this? So the 2020 one that just came out, I mean, will there be a new list in 2030? Where they bring in a lot of new, younger people to decide? I mean, there's not a lot of guitar playing in today's pop music, so this might be the last we see of this type of comprehensive list in a while, by this comprehensive of a list of people. So let's see who did this. So the voters in this case were guys like Ritchie Blackmore, James Burton, Jerry Cantrell of Alice in Chains, Steve Cropper, Rick Derringer, Don Felder, Warren Hayes, Jim James of My Morning Jackets. We got some newer people in here. Lenny Kravitz, Eric Leifson, Brian May, etc. So there's also a couple producers involved here, but it's not just a bunch of writers who maybe the only instruments the writers play are like their cell phones or their computer keyboard, or among other instruments maybe. So let's just delve into the top 10 here. So thankfully, so Eddie Van Halen was number 70 in here. Obviously, that's a bit of a joke. We see him restored to the top 10 here in the current issue, or should I say the 2011 list. So let me just go through the top 10 here. It's a very, very solid top 10. Number one, we still have Hendrix in the top spot. Now, I didn't say much about Hendrix in the last video. I glossed over some of these top 10 guys. I've always felt Hendrix was a little bit overrated, but really, I shouldn't think that, because if there was anybody to blow away the other guitar players on the scene, it was Hendrix. Prior to Hendrix, guitar playing and the guitar solo, it just wasn't as loud, it wasn't as dynamic, it wasn't using the sonic boom that Hendrix displayed. And I mean, I can't think of a solo prior to that. Clapton wasn't really doing it with the Yardbirds, or, I mean, who else was there really? George Harrison, Keith Richards. Those solos were all rather subdued for pop music recording. Hendrix changed all that. So, and everybody, the other guitarists started shitting their pants when they heard him. So I guess that's reason enough to have him be number one. Before I get further, before I forget, this issue, it also does commemorate Eddie Van Halen with several other guitar players paying tribute. Guys such as, if I can find it here, I know Gene Simmons, Steve Vai, Here we go, Steve Vai, Tony Iommi, Tom Morello, Joe Satriani. So all these guys are paying tribute to Eddie Van Halen, which is really kind of nice. It's worth the price of the magazine alone just for those. So getting back to the top 10. Clapton at number 2. You know, Clapton stuff, boy, his Yardbird stuff I wasn't into that much. I mean, his blues licks, slightly predictable. It wasn't until he got to Cream that started really blowing me away. And then his early 70s stuff is also awesome. But then by the mid-70s, it gets a little more adult contemporary, I guess. But he is rated by everybody as one of the greatest blues guitar players of all time. So it doesn't surprise me that he's number 2 here. And Eddie Van Halen is the one that does the write-up for this. Number 3, Jimmy Page. So Page, you know, from Zeppelin, hard to deny him a top 10 spot. Keith Richards at number 4. Jeff Beck at number 5. And that's quite an impressive top 5. As we continue, we have the 6th spot, B.B. King, Chuck Berry at 7, Eddie Van Halen at 8. So we see in 2003 at number 70, he jumps up to number 8 here as voted by actual guitar players. 9, Duane Allman. Pete Townsend at number 10. This is interesting. Townsend in the 03 edition ranked at number 50. So guitar players really have an affection for this guy. I know one of the big fans of Townsend is Joe Walsh. Okay, George Harrison at number 11. Harrison in the 03 book was 21. So guitar players really rate Harrison high. I'm glad to see that because I'm a huge Beatle fan. But it's tough to rank a Beatle in this list simply because there's such a strong emphasis on the song structure, the melody really, and the voices, as opposed to the guitar playing. But Harrison clearly has some wonderful moments. The solo in the stereo or the album version of Let It Be, the song Something, you know, If I Needed Someone, you know, it goes on and on. Moving along here, we got Stevie Ray Vaughan at 12, Albert King 13, David Gilmour at 14. In the 03 issue, he was voted at number 83, I believe. So that's quite a jump for David Gilmour. Freddie King 15, Derek Trucks still rated very high at number 16. Neil Young. Okay, in the 03, Neil Young, let's see here, I got some notes. Neil Young was at number 83. Here he's at number 17. And in my last video, we saw Kurt Cobain at number 12 in 2003. Cobain's back down and is rated by Guitarists at 75. So it's as if the guitar players switched Neil Young and Cobain on this ranking here. It's always hard to rank a young guitar player who dies young because they just don't have a full lifetime, a full career of not only making their mistakes, but reinventing themselves in some way. So I think it's a little harder to bring in the young guys. And this list here, which was the current list or the more up-to-date list, rids itself of some of the younger players that were in the 2003 list. 18, Les Paul. 19, James Burton. Carlos Santana at 20. And number 21 here, we have Chet Atkins. So in the 03 list, there were no country players at all. Atkins rates very higher at 21 after missing the list entirely in 03. 22, Zappa. 23, Buddy Guy. 24, Angus Young. Angus Young in this issue of 03 was at 96. So you see guitar players actually valuing him quite a bit more. Same for Tony Iommi, which is at 25. Brian May, 26. Bo Diddley, 27. Johnny Ramone, 28. Ramone takes a little bit of a dive here. He was at 16 in the 03 list. I thought that was abnormally high. I still think 28 is a little bit high, but clearly was an influential guitar player. Scotty Moore, 29. Elmore James, 30. Ry Cooder, 31, who in this issue was ranked at number 8. Billy Gibbons, number 32 here. Billy Gibbons was completely ignored in the 03 issue, as was Prince, number 33. Curtis Mayfield, 34. I don't believe made this issue either. John Lee Hooker at 35. Randy Rhoads, 36. He's up quite a bit. Mick Taylor at 37. He was not on the list in 03. The Edge at 38. Okay, we got Steve Cropper, 39. Tom Morello, 40. Mick Ronson, 41. Mike Bloomfield diving down to 42. Hubert Sumlin at 43. Mark Knopfler, 44. Link Ray, 45. Here we see another big drop with Jerry Garcia, who was at number 13 in the 03 issue. Here he's at 46. Stephen Stills, 47. Johnny Greenwood at 48. Muddy Waters, 49. Richie Blackmore, 50. Johnny Marr, 51. He was also omitted from the 03 list. Clarence White, 52. Otis Rush, 53. Joe Walsh, 54. Was not on the 03 list. 55. Here's an interesting addition, John Lennon. Now, most people don't think of John Lennon as a guitar player. What I said earlier about Hendrix was really the first rock guitarist virtuoso. Prior to that, you weren't thinking of guitar players as virtuosos. And most of the times, the Beatles aren't thought of that either. But John Lennon's got some very interesting playing, very interesting guitar lines, particularly his solos in Get Back would be one. If you listen to the song Honey Pie from the White Album, George Harrison suggests he does like a little Django Reinhardt on that, or listen to I Feel Fine. So Lennon can really do it when he tries. He doesn't always try though. 56, Albert Collins. 57, Rory Gallagher, who did not make this list. 58, Peter Green. 59, Robbie Robertson. Ron Ashton at 60. Dickie Betts, 61. Robert Fripp, 62. Johnny Winter, 63. Dwayne Eddy, 64. Slash, 65. I was surprised Slash wasn't on this list initially. Another new one to this newer list is Leslie West at 66. T-Bone Walker, 67. John McLaughlin at 68. Richard Thompson at 69. So back in the 03 list, Richard Thompson was rated at 19, which really amazed me. Jack White is at 70. Robert Johnson down to 71. John Frusciante, 72. Cobain, 73. Dick Dale, 74. Joni Mitchell holding steady at 75. We go to Robbie Krieger at 76. We have Willie Nelson making the list here, which is interesting. He actually, what's the name of his guitar? I forget the name. Trigger. There you go. John Fahey at 78. Mike Campbell, 79. That's Tom Petty's guitar player. Buddy Holly at 80. Yeah, I think he belongs on this list because he was a very influential guy, particularly with the Beatles and all those early 60s rockers. Lou Reed down to 81. Nels Cline, 82. Eddie Hazel, 83. Joe Perry, 84. Andy Summers makes the list at 85. Jay Masix at 86. James Hetfield at 87. Carl Perkins, 88. Bonnie Raitt, 89. Tom Verlaine, 90. So Bonnie Raitt makes the list here after not being on the earlier one. Dave Davies, 91. Dimebag Darrell, 92. Paul Simon, 93. Peter Buck of REM, 94. Roger McGuinn making the list also here at 95. Bruce Springsteen at 96. I don't ever think of his guitar playing, but somebody was thinking of it here. I never really paid that much attention to it. But he makes the list here at 96. One stop ahead of Steve Jones and 2 spots ahead of Eric Leifson. Thurston Moore at 99 and Lindsey Buckingham at 100. Buckingham had not made the original list either. So in short, I know I went through those rather quickly. Essentially, this list favored a couple different things. So I had made a comment in the first 2 videos how the Rolling Stone had a bias towards San Francisco players. So when the guitar players threw in guys like John Cipollina, John Fogerty, Jerry Miller of Moby Grape, Jorma Kaukonen, all not in the top 100. Jerry Garcia went from 13 to 46. Santana dropped slightly from 15 to 20. So the other thing I noticed was that a lot of the younger players, I guess they would be younger by 2003 standards, fell quite a bit in the guitarists list as well. Kirk Hammett of Metallica, who was at number 11 here, not even on this list. Jack White fell from 17 to 70. John Frusciante from 18 to 72. Lou Reed, he's not younger, but I just happened to throw him on here because he dropped from 52 to 81. I've always felt that the Velvet Underground, there was a bias toward Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground and the Rolling Stone. That's why I bring it up here. And a surprise to me was Robert Johnson falling from 5 all the way to 71. So I guess I'm much more satisfied with this list of players. I mean, there's only 100 spots, so not everybody can make it. So I think that the better title for this would be the 100 greatest rock era guitarists of all time. Because there's still no mention of any classical players like Andres Segovia was one I had on my list. He's one that I know. Obviously, there's a lot of jazz guys that aren't on here. A lot of country pickers, etc., bluegrass players. But I mean, as far as rock goes, this is as good of a list as I've seen, and I'd have to say I'm pretty satisfied with it. So there you have a quick rundown of a couple different issues on what some people thought were the 100 greatest guitarists. You know, there's never going to be consensus. Can you imagine if a list like this came out by the Rolling Stone, everybody in the world said, yeah, that's about right? You know, it would never happen. So it's good to talk about this stuff. Very subjective topics, and it's not always easy to articulate one guitarist over another, but this is always a good starting point. So I appreciate you watching. Please share this video on social media with somebody who you think might appreciate it, and we'll see you next time here on Pop Goes the 60s.